2:17 on the clock. Tony Gwynn Jr., Matt Scraby, and now Stephen Strasburg joins us here on Gwynn and Chris. And Stephen and I go back a little bit of ways. He played for my pops at San Diego State, as you guys know. You know what? You were supposed to play the call when you came in, when we came in right there, Scrape.
You know what? I was supposed to play the call. I got a lot going on right now.
I know.
We're talking baseball in the break. I'm like, this is really fun.
We play this call often when Chris is in the building. He's not in the building, but I feel like he would want us to play it for at least one time. So we'll go ahead.
Strasburg ready to go.
That's all we have.
That's all we have. I told you that beforehand. We play this all the time because that was when you had the no-hitter and Chris was on the call. I'm going to go find the full call, but it's something that Chris loves to remember.
It's like
all the time.
It's one of his best memories. So welcome to the show, Stephen. How you been, man?
Been good. Yeah, I just moved back here end of May, so kids are getting settled into school, and yeah, it's just great being closer to family. And I think my heart's always been here in this city.
I mean, obviously, being that you just moved back, I'm sure you've caught some of the wind of what's going down at Petco Park. I mean, you're still, relatively close removed from this game, but I'm sure you've been able to catch a little bit of it. What's been your thoughts watching the Padres do their thing?
Yeah, I mean, the energy that's surrounding this town reminds me a lot of 2019. One of the amazing things about everything that I was going through at the end of my career is that it made me realize how impactful that run was to the community, and to kind of see, the excitement, see the sellout crowds on TV. My nieces and nephews are all like, "Hey, let's turn on the Padres game." It's pretty special, and I think they're right in the thick of it here. And we were talking earlier. I mean, October's already started for them.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of excited to plug in and watch from afar.
I think, to your point, you go back to 2019 and you guys go on that run. If those who may not remember, that year you guys got off to a pretty slow start, and it came on late. Just talk a little bit about once it changed over for your guys' team, the energy that begins to build. Just talk a little bit about that and I'm bringing that up because we're watching a Padre team that seemingly kind of has whatever it is, that it factor. They have it right now.
Yeah. No, I think, there was other years, 2012, was it 2014, like where we won the division and we had that bye, and like that was really hard to really like comprehend because you weren't, we won it and we had regular season to play and then we had a bye. And now with this structure, it's kind of like you have to be playing your best baseball right to the finish. Right. And, when we got the wild card game in 2019, that rebound really started months earlier. And it came to the point where we had just great veterans on the team who really brought everybody together. And we just pulled for each other. We were having fun. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we were going to get in, if we were going to keep going. It was just one pitch at a time. And that was the goal. It was just, are we going to win pitches? Are we going to play the game the right way? And really looking at that as a way to springboard. And then, go figure. It takes one bad hop with Grisham.
Right.
And then it was like the rest is history. So,
I mean, you talk about one pitch, at a time. I mean, that's we pretty much hear that from Mike Schilt on a daily basis. I think people get frustrated with it, but it's really how you have to look at things when you get to this time of year. We'll get to some more baseball stuff, Major League Baseball stuff. You're going to be with us for a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about what has your attention now. I mean, both of us are proud Aztecs, and the college structure in itself is beginning to change a little bit. And just kind of talk a little bit about what you've got going on, what you're passionate about right now, because I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, I think all this time, being on the East Coast and being focused on my own career, I took a lot of pride. I think one of the most often asked questions that I got as a professional from fellow teammates was, what was it like playing for Tony Gwynn? And I think that impact was really on a national stage. And then you kind of see, the basketball program doing really well, and I was, I played with a lot of guys from SEC schools who showed that kind of pride. And I think for me, my parents being alumni, coming from here, getting a chance to play for my favorite player all time, there's a desire in my heart to really, help the baseball program in whatever way I can. And it's going to be a multifaceted approach. And I think the NIL era has a lot of influence, and we'll see how it all shakes up. But right now, it's just trying to re-engage with the alumni, get them back together, and seeing where we can take this thing. I'm a firm believer that all the pieces are in place for the San Diego State baseball to be a national contender year in and year out.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I think we've all at least thought at some point while we were there and since we've been gone, because there's no doubt the talent is here. Now, Sean Cole is the head coach at San Diego State. We had him on last week to talk a little bit about the decision for the Aztecs to move to the Pac-12, which will start here, 2026, I believe it is?
Yeah, 26.
2026. Have you had conversations with Coach Cole?
Yeah, I've had a lot of lengthy conversations with Sean, and I think his heart's in the right place. And, I really believe that, he really wants to see this program get to the next level. And that's all you can really ask for is somebody who's committed to the program and that who wants to be there. Like, this is their dream job. I know it was Tony's dream job, and I think that's what the program deserves. As far as my involvement, I kind of just told him, I said, hey, like, I'm moving back. I got, 3 girls and I'm busy with that. But if you need me to come down and work with some guys, I'll be there. And really for me, it's just about creating this infrastructure, this network, and getting these guys back connected. That's one thing that, one thing I looked forward to for years was that, season was over whenever it was, and I'd come back and I'd be there for the Aztec baseball golf tournament. And I get a chance to see a bunch of guys. And then, a couple years ago, I started to hear that I was like, oh, they're not doing it anymore. And so that's why I kind of decided to like springboard it myself. And, we're starting one on November 15th out at Steel Canyon, and really just trying to get the community back involved and get them a chance to know the current program and support that program.
November 15th, you guys heard it there. I will certainly be there. This is for Aztecs out there. This is important. And I think the thing that you and I have spoke about on a couple of different occasions, we spoke about it a little bit earlier before we came on. This isn't, you're looking for small dollar donors in this. It's not a pull out your checkbook and give us everything that you got. This is kind of how some of these NIL programs are built, is off of these small dollar kind of donations, correct?
Yeah. I mean, San Diego State, there's 500,000 living alumni. And I would like to think, growing up here in San Diego, I obviously know how impactful your dad's legacy is. And super special for me to be able to give back and hopefully get Tony Gwynn Stadium in a place that really honors his legacy. And that's the ultimate goal for me right now, is to, have something there to give back to the current players and set them up for success in the long term.
We'll do our best to get the information out, moving forward. But certainly something I think both of us find important, and we'll keep pushing to try to keep the word going. Now, let's talk a little bit about your experience at San Diego State, because clearly it's pretty important to you. I think it's part of the reason why you decided to make this move. Talk a little bit about your time at San Diego State and why it was so impactful and important to you.
Yeah, I mean, it was there was a major transformation that happened when I was there. Growing up as a kid, my dad would always take me to San Diego State baseball games. I mean, I remember, when Dietz was coaching there, I remember watching you, Royce Ring, Aaron Harang, all these guys that you just kind of like idolize as a kid. And to have that opportunity, number one, to wear the red and black, and number two, to play for your dad, who was my favorite player, and my freshman year was the year he got inducted in the Hall of Fame. It's just it's really near and dear to my heart. And I think the San Diego community as a whole, they're very much attached to Tony Gwynn. He's kind of synonymous with San Diego, and I think just coming back here, it just shows that baseball, like, this is a baseball town now.
Yeah. It
and
is.
I was on the East Coast, Chargers left, and even I play fantasy football now, and it's like I'm not really like a Chargers fan, even though I like the Harbaugh hire.
Right.
But this is a baseball town, and I'd like to think that San Diego State baseball is almost like the little brother of the Padres, and especially with that connection to Tony.
Talk about your transformation, because I don't think a lot of people know this. I mean, I think a lot of people came onto the scene when you were, sophomore, junior, and you were making all the noise, but
Yeah.
it wasn't easy for you when you got to San Diego State.
No, and I mean it just goes down to the culture that your dad created. I was coming in as a freshman. I was like 30 pounds overweight. I mean, I wasn't a terrible high school player. My numbers weren't very good, but I went from 88 to 90. I feel like I could command the baseball, command the breaking ball, and just literally got punched in the face week one. Never worked out before.
That
nothing.
condition is no joke.
And it was the easy route would have been like, this just isn't for me. But one of the guys that was really influential when I was there was Bruce Billings. He was a senior at the time, and I distinctly remember this moment where I'm throwing up in the ice plane, I'm not getting through the running, and these upperclassmen are they come over and they're carrying me. They're carrying, making sure I finish the lap, and that was really eye-opening to me, because that's like the true sense of team.
Yeah.
Is that you're only as strong as your weakest link, and I didn't want to be that weak link. I wanted to prove to them that I was there for them and I had their back, and that's where it really motivated me to just put in all the extra work. And those are things that you can control. Like, I can't control that. That led to me throwing much harder, and that but at the same time, it's like you have to look back on every single moment in your playing career and just ask yourself, did I do everything that I possibly could?
Right.
And if you honestly say you did, then you can live with the outcome.
That is such an interesting thing, because even the part after you decided I didn't want to be the weak link, it still was some time in between that time and the guy you became the following year, correct?
Yeah, I mean, they Rusty Filter was there, and it started out, I remember we went up to like Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for a 3-game series. I didn't have a role, and we kind of got knocked around up there. And then Bruce Billings was the closer at the time, and then they basically made the choice, like, he needs to come back in the rotation. And Rusty told me, he's like, hey, I think you're gonna be our closer, and I don't care, like, we're not pulling the job from you. You go out there and give it everything you have. And it really just helped me slowly. Not at the time I didn't understand it,
Right.
but there's things out there that you can control as a pitcher. How you go about your business out there, your mound presence. That was a big thing that they were working on me with. It wasn't just results based.
Right.
Like, the results were going to be what they were going to be. And one of the things that I really, they harped on me was just keeping the team in the ball game, not trying to be perfect. They didn't expect me to go out there and strike out the side every time. It was just doing the little things, attacking the strike zone, all the things that you can do on a daily basis, and then you can just live with the results. Sometimes they'll be good, sometimes they won't, but that's baseball. And that's I guess a thing that really I leaned on in 2019 as well. It kind of really stuck with me all those years.
Steven Strasburg with us for at least another segment. We're going to get into more baseball. A lot of new questions about baseball that I haven't got a chance to talk to you about, that I want to kind of get your perspective on. We'll talk more Padres. A lot more to come here on Gwynn and Chris.
Gwynn and Chris on the Fan.
Yes, indeed. That was the no-hitter thrown by Steven Strasburg. What year was that?
9. That was my last start at Tony Gwynn Stadium.
2009. You know what I remember about that year was I got traded from Milwaukee to San Diego that year, and I remember like the first. It would have been in May, which I think would have been postseason for you guys. I think you guys played Virginia.
Yeah.
I think you started the day I got my first start as a Padre on the road in Colorado. Buddy had it up on the screen, and it was going well when I walked out, and then we came back.
I'll never forget. I didn't give up, not to toot my own horn too much, I didn't give up very many home runs in college, but one of them, my last one, was to Phil Gosselin in that Virginia game, and he like hit the scoreboard on it. And I always tell myself, I was like, oh, that guy made the big leagues. Like, he must have been pretty good. So,
Make yourself feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah.
Steven Strasburg joins us here, just talking a little bit about San Diego State and some of the things he has going, and, of course, the Padres and everything they have going right now in the midst of, I think, one of their best seasons. It may not end up that way in terms of how many wins the Padres end up getting this year. I think the record is 98 or 99. The 98 team, I think, has the most wins in franchise history. Obviously, they can't get there. I mean, they could if they went out. But I still think this is going to go down as one of the better seasons from start to finish. Steven, you grew up here in San Diego. You obviously spent your entire career with the Nationals. Are you torn at all watching these games? I mean, I know there's a closet Padre fan in there, as there was for me, because you're no longer playing though.
I think when it gets to this time of year, you just start to follow the teams that are kind of like I can imagine that they're going through what we went through.
Yeah.
And you pull for them. I mean, I'm always. I mean, I was an underdog. I pull for the underdog. So I think watching this, it just really brings back those really vivid memories, and how it's almost like you remember the feeling, but you don't remember any specific thing that happened. And that kind of like gets the juices flowing for me just watching these games here. And they have a good test coming up, and but that's playoff baseball. It starts now, and it's all about doing like the little things. I think from my experience, it was teams change, like the top teams, the ones who really go far. I look back on the the Giants when they're making those runs, and as a pitcher facing them, I want to say it was like 2014. You're facing a really good lineup, and it's like, but these guys, they do the little things. They are going to grind on you every single pitch.
Talk about that a little bit. I bring it up often when I'm doing the radio, or the chances I get a chance to do the TV games. When a lineup is consistently going 7, 8, 9 pitches, not just one guy, but 4 or 5 guys in the lineup that do it, what kind of stress does that put on you as a pitcher?
Well, I just think it's like every mistake is like compounded. As a pitcher, you're always going to leave pitches over the plate. It compounds in the sense that, like, when you're facing hitters that keep the game simple and they're just trying to keep the line moving, that's a single up the middle. That's not a, trying to hit one in the gap and flying out. You know? So it's really like every inning becomes the ninth. I think you see that where you can go as a starting pitcher and you can get away with pitches, but then it almost seems like the good teams and the good hitters in the ninth, they hit like another gear. And that's the best way I can describe it, is that, it's the ninth inning from the first inning on.
I always describe playoff baseball as pitchers, everybody's more focused. And so if let's say you're getting a ball and a half of pitches in the middle of a plate during a regular season, that goes down to 1. Mm-hmm. And hitters are spitting on pitches that maybe in the regular season they might offer at. Did you notice the same thing in your experience?
100%. It's so fine-tuned to where it's like you can sit out there and try and be perfect, and I think that's the natural tendency, and that gets you completely out of like the frame of mind that got you there in the first place. And it's like, that's the thing. It's like these good teams, it's like they know their identity, they pull for each other.
Right.
And it's like when it comes crunch time, like you're doing the little things correctly, and it's just really simplifying the game as best as you can, and not necessarily feeling like there's any added pressure on each pitch. It's just, hey, as I'm going out there and I'm executing this pitch, I'm going to execute this, and I know, if I can do that 70 out of 95, 100 pitches, I'm going to be okay. And if the scoreboard looks bad, then I can live with that.
One more. I know you don't like talking about yourself, but I have a lot of questions about especially that year. Did you hear the noise prior to that last start, or going into that series against the Astros? The noise around Steven Strasburg has been, he's not willing to step into the fold here when it really counts. Did you hear that, and how did you channel that after, if you did at all?
Yeah, I think that was kind of something that carried me like through my whole career, and I was like, it's there. I think it also goes back to just kind of them making the really tough decision when I blew out my elbow to say, hey, like, you're not going to pitch in the playoffs. I was young. I was just kind of like, I don't know what's going on, but it's like now every opportunity that you're there from a personal perspective, it's like it gets magnified. And, I would say that was kind of like a turning point in my career. I feel like that there was, some injuries. I was riding the high and the low, and then I finally got to this point where it's like I made it to the end. That was the biggest thing is like, can I be upright in September?
Right.
And, I was able to do that, and I just really loved the teammates that I had there. Gerardo Parra, Anibal Sanchez, we had a young Juan Soto who was great there. Throwing to Yan Gomes, Kurt Suzuki. Those guys just like you play for them, right? And I just wanted to go out there and leave it all out there on the table. And if it didn't work, it didn't work. But man, those guys, like, there were so many points in that playoff run where I got bailed out, and they can sit there and say, "Oh, World Series MVP," and I was like, "Well, my teammates
they
helped
me
you.
They picked you up.
I would never have happened if it wasn't for all these. I mean, Howie Kendrick. It's like you look back on all the big hits that he had. It's wouldn't have happened otherwise.
You brought up one of my favorite guys to watch in Juan Soto. Was it pretty apparent the moment he got called up that he was going to be this good?
Yeah, I think because he made a jump. Like he
went
was
from Double A, right?
I think it was High A.
High A. I think you're right.
Because he was tearing it up down there, and a lot of times when you get a guy called up, it's like the game's like sped up. Like guys' breaking pitches are sharper. Like they're hitting their spots better, and there's an adjustment period. And the thing that I noticed early on with Juan was just his plate discipline was off the charts. And that's one thing that you see from the young guys. It's like, all right, they might be guessing, they might be trying to keyhole you in certain counts, but Juan's just seeing the baseball and reacting.
Yeah.
So and that's very, very special skill.
He's very special from that standpoint. Here's one that just kind of popped up. I mean, Paul Skeens kind of reminds me a little bit of what you went through. If you haven't spoke to him, if you had a chance to speak to him, what kind of advice would you have for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because I was kind of at the early stage of like the next, let's hype up every prospect, right? And
yes, you were.
Yeah, and I just looking from afar, it's like you don't, I didn't really understand what was going on at the time. I was young, and I was like, I felt really uncomfortable being in the clubhouse and being around these guys that I idolized, these veterans. I mean, I'm throwing to Pudge Rodriguez as a rookie. And it was just weird to me. It didn't really sit
all
well.
The attention was on you, and you had these vets that had been in there for a while.
And it's just, it's easy to be, labeled the savior of the franchise. And, that's a lot of weight that you have to put on, that you could put on yourself. But I would say just like, you just have to enjoy it. Like there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and it's all about just finding those ways to get better every single day. Like this is just a long career. his next start, it's not just that start. Like there's many more starts down the road, and just really look at it from the perspective like, this is going to be a long career, and I just want to know at the end of the day that I, turned over every stone and I gave it everything I possibly could.
Now, Stephen, you were built up old fashioned, right? You talked a little bit about getting in the weight room, kind of changing your whole body structure, really. How much analytics did you actually get to participate in, if you will, and how much did you like it or didn't like it?
Yeah, I think that the analytics part, especially from pitching, one of the things that, I had a pitching coach, Steve McCaddy, early on in my career, and he would always talk about paralysis by analysis. And I think with that, when you get young guys, I think it's very easy to have the analytics part change who you are as a pitcher and what makes you successful. I would use more so just like the data from a scouting perspective.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is that like, when you're in college and you only give up like a couple home runs in a 3-year career, and then you get, clipped a few times, you're like, oh man, like this doesn't feel right. And so the immediate thing is to like start to tinker and start to change, and then you start to, I need to throw 60 pitches in the bullpen in between, and then I got to figure it out. And when you have a long career, you start to realize that you're going to give up home runs, and then when you're going to give up home runs, it's how can you pick out where your outs are in the lineup, how can you stay away from slug. And that's really the thing that really helped me, was just trying to stay away from slug, and it's like really using my pitches and my sequences to keep the ball in the yard. And
get it off the sweet part of the bat.
Yeah, and but at the same time, when you got 2 strikes, like know how to punch a guy out. Don't wait around, don't mess around. It's like boom, put him away.
You mentioned you came up pretty quickly after you got drafted, and you did have a lot of the eyeballs on you. And listen, having been in clubhouses, I know that could rub people the wrong way to no bad doing on your own. Who were like your mentors when you came up? Like who were the guys that kind of put their arm around you?
Yeah, well, I would say, obviously, Ryan Zimmerman, Zim was great, and he's always more like the quiet type, and then but he was always there to include you with a lot of the stuff, like away from the field, a lot of the team building things. I would say like the one guy who like we kind of like our personalities, like he's got a very dry sense of humor. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to like accept it and like enjoy it. But Jordan Zimmerman,
I can
he is a character, and his family and my family are still really close. They were out here for 4th of July with us, and we're already talking about planning another trip together. But he was a guy that like, as a young pitcher, I mean, he kept it very, very simple. And it was just, he had that bulldog mentality.
Yeah,
and it was like, I'm going to make you beat me. And that's something that, at the end of the day, like if you go out there and do that, like you can take it. It's not like, second guess, man, I should have thrown that pitch. I should have thrown that. It's like, it doesn't matter whichever one you're committed to and you have the most conviction with.
Lot of Scrape, you got your hand up.
I got one.
Sorry,
I'm
sorry. Go ahead,
no,
man.
Tony,
I'm just taking over. Go ahead.
No, I'm in some weird world over there watching a great conversation from in studio. But my question, we talked about Paul Skeens, and we have a pretty good chance at Rookie of the Year here in San Diego. I'm not going to ask you to choose who's going to win, but what has Jackson Merrill shown you this year in his rookie year and leading the team, playing center field, all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing to do. I think when you get the first taste of, going through to the finish line, especially when you come from, shortened minor league season or like with Skeens, like college season and stuff, that, there's going to be some, I guess, physical breakdown at some point. But when you're staying consistent with that and you've kind of proven that, you belong, that's one thing that it doesn't come along very often, and in a way I feel like it's it can be that could be a little bit harder from a position player standpoint, because starting pitcher, like you can go out there and be lights out, but you're pitching once every 5 days, 5-6 days, and when you start to like change the rotation around just for a long-term health perspective, like those position players, they're grinding, they're playing through injuries, and to be able to have that professional sense and like feel to still go out there and perform. It's impressive when you see a guy that young be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing we haven't had to have a discussion of is health. He's been available every single game. A lot of injuries with pitchers this year. Some of the best pitchers in our game have missed the year due to injury. I mean, you see it. Guys are throwing harder than they ever have. You kind of started that trend as well. Is there a remedy to this? I mean, there was a time you and I both grew up in an era watching aces face each other often, and it was like the game to watch. We don't have that as much. I mean, you get a matchup like yesterday with Fromber and Dillon. Those seem to be far and few in between. Is there a remedy for this? I know you've seen some of the conversation about Major League Baseball, maybe, legislating this into the game somehow. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the game of baseball, like it's in its purest form, doesn't require outside elements to control it almost. It's tough to say. I mean, that's such a hard question to answer. That's the puzzle piece that I looked for my entire career.
Right.
I think one of the things going up was that I idolized those guys that were eating innings or innings eaters, right? And you don't see those guys valued anymore. One of the guys that I got a chance to work with in the off season was James Shields when I was coming back here in San Diego for the off seasons, and I just thought that was one thing where I just like, man, those guys are just pitching through everything. Like, they're reliable. They are going out there every 5 days, and they're going deep. I don't know if it's analytics. I did start to see where it's like, oh, this guy can't face the lineup the third time through. It's hard to say if guys are being rushed to the big leagues because they throw hard and they're dominating hitters, and maybe that they haven't really understood how to pitch and they're more throwers. It's a tough call. I think I think the game's just changed in that aspect, and I don't really know if we're ever going to see it again.
Yeah, I know that's what the league is clamoring for at some point. But you're right. Yeah. Once it's almost like what we say, the toothpaste is out of the tube already. I don't know that you can put it back in. We run a little short on time. Chris Grape, you got something else?
I got one more,
Go
and
ahead,
it's about like the pitch clock and all these different things that have come about after you left the game. But like, would you have been in favor of a pitch clock? Because I think at first many people thought it was going to be awkward, it was going to be weird, but we've all gotten used to it. So what are your thoughts on things like the pitch clock?
You can be honest too.
Yeah, I think the pitch clock is controversial. I think it's one of those things that was like kind of pointless to me. I think if as a pitcher, it's like you want to pitch at a fast tempo. The hitter wants to slow the game down, but at this, like, there's been some instances obviously where there's been a pitch clock violation and it's really messed up the outcome of the game, and I think that's not right from a personal perspective. That's the difference about baseball compared to any other sport. There is no clock.
Yeah.
And that's I think if you allow the players as a whole to police it themselves, and I think that's where you can't police it yourself anymore.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like pitch clock didn't really come into factor because like you're trying to go out there and get in this repetitive tempo, and that tempo is fast because you want to have the hitter almost be on the defensive and not in the offensive.
You're 100% right. I mean, that was the game. It was, he's going to try to go quick. I'm going to try to go slow so I can kind of think this out. Who's going to win that cat and mouse?
Mark Burley threw like a 2 hour and 5 minute complete game against us one time, and it was just like rapid fire. Here it is, hit it, sinker, ground ball, and I was like, man, that was a quick game.
Strauss, give us the website.
Yeah, it's aztecalumni.com. The sign-up sheet is open for the golf tournament on November 15th. And, I would love everybody to come out and support the baseball program. I believe it can go to some great heights here, and really honor your dad. He's got a special place in my heart, and he always will.
Yeah, he definitely considered you a second son, Stephen. Appreciate you coming on, man. We'll
Thank you so much.
make sure we get the word out for sure.
Appreciate it.
More Gwynn and Chris on the other side.